Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for new stories. In the year 2437, humanity had long since made its mark on the cosmos, but the unknown remained vast. Exploration, while adventurous, still left many surprises waiting at the fringes of the universe. For Captain Marcus Granger, a seasoned interstellar pilot, one particular mission would set in motion a life-altering experience. It had started like any other routine visit to a distant planet. Survey, document, and return. The planet Seriphus IV was a small moon in a barely charted star system. Its atmosphere, rich in exotic gases and minerals, made it a prime spot for research. Marcus and his crew landed, their vessel nestled amongst alien flora unlike anything they'd seen before. The air was thick, pulsing with the hum of a foreign energy that intrigued Marcus immediately. But it wasn't the flora that caught his attention. As the crew set up their scanners and began their work, Marcus was drawn to a strange, shimmering light in the distance. The light wasn't from a natural source, nor was it from any known technology. It beckoned him like a whisper on the wind. Without fully understanding why, Marcus ventured out alone toward the light. His boots crunched on the planet's surface, and the air buzzed with an unnatural energy. As he approached the light, his breath caught in his throat. Standing before him was a creature unlike any he'd ever seen. A towering alien woman with shimmering violet skin, hair that cascaded like thick tendrils of fur, and glowing eyes. She stood with a grace that seemed unnatural, as though she was a part of the very atmosphere. Her features, though humanoid, were undeniably alien, with an exotic beauty that took his breath away. She was perfect, a strange mix of powerful and delicate, beautiful yet intimidating. "Are you from Earth?" Her voice was soft but carried an undeniable strength. Marcus hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to respond. He had never encountered a sentient alien species before, especially one so clearly different from anything he had seen in his extensive travels. "Yes, I am," he finally said, his voice betraying the wonder he felt. "I'm Captain Marcus Granger of the Endeavor." The alien's expression softened. "I am Yara of the Selshar people. I've been watching you." Marcus raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "Watching me? Why?" "There's something about you, Captain," she replied, her voice lingering in his mind. "Something human." Before he could ask more, Yara stepped closer, her scent intoxicating. Her eyes glowed brighter, and in an instant, everything around them seemed to fade into the background. She reached out and touched his arm, sending a shockwave of energy through him. His heart raced, but he found himself strangely calm. "I can feel your essence, Marcus," Yara said, her eyes narrowing. "You're different from the others." Marcus felt an odd connection to her, something beyond language or comprehension. There was no rational explanation for it, yet he didn't pull away. Their gazes locked, and for a long, surreal moment, time itself seemed to stretch. Without warning, she kissed him. A deep, overwhelming kiss that sent waves of warmth through his body. It wasn't a kiss of passion, but one of something deeper, more primal, as if she was testing the very fabric of his being. The encounter lasted longer than it should have, but when it ended, Marcus was breathless, his body tingling with an alien energy he couldn't quite comprehend. Yara pulled back, her eyes searching his face with an intensity that left him unsettled. "This was unexpected," Marcus said, his voice hushed. "What just happened?" "A bond has been forged between us," Yara said, her voice calm but full of power. "It is rare among my kind, but it has happened. Your human essence. It calls to me." Marcus, still reeling from the intensity of their interaction, found himself speechless. He didn't know what to make of it, but he couldn't deny the strange pull he felt toward her. Yara's lips curved into a small, enigmatic smile. "It's not just a bond, Marcus. It is something more. Something that will change everything." Before he could process her words, she stepped back, her form shimmering with a soft light. "Come with me. We must speak further." As Marcus followed her into the depths of the alien landscape, his mind raced. What did this all mean? And why did he feel like his entire life had just been altered by a single, unforeseen encounter? This is just the beginning. The bond between Marcus and Yara is set to grow in unexpected ways, with life-altering consequences that neither could have anticipated. What will Marcus do when he learns that he's not only bonded with an alien beauty, but that their connection is much deeper and more dangerous than either could have guessed? The next part of the story will reveal the true implications of their night together and the mysterious consequences that await. The journey through the alien landscape felt surreal to Marcus. Yara led the way with a fluid grace, her violet skin shimmering in the low light, her long, fur-like hair trailing behind her like a soft veil. Despite the strange beauty of the world around him, a sense of unease gnawed at Marcus. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything about this moment was impossibly surreal, that he had somehow crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. He followed Yara through the alien terrain, the air growing warmer as they neared what looked like a massive, luminescent structure. It was like nothing Marcus had ever seen, a mix of organic and mechanical, as though the architecture itself was alive, breathing with an otherworldly energy. The building pulsed with a soft glow, and as they entered, the atmosphere shifted. It was as if the entire space responded to Yara's presence, growing brighter as she approached the center. "Where are we?" Marcus asked, his voice hushed as he surveyed his surroundings. "This is the heart of my people," Yara said, her voice reverberating with an emotion Marcus couldn't quite place. "The place where all of us are born." He turned to her, confusion evident on his face. "Born? What do you mean?" Yara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked toward the center of the structure, where an intricate, bioluminescent egg-shaped formation floated in the air. It seemed almost alive, swirling with iridescent colors and emitting a soft hum. Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine as he watched the egg shift in midair, as if reacting to Yara's presence. "My people are not like yours," Yara began, her gaze never leaving the egg. "We do not reproduce the way humans do. Our offspring are birthed from an energy bond, an exchange of essence that creates life." Marcus's heart skipped a beat. "Wait, you mean when we kissed?" Yara nodded solemnly. "Yes, the bond we forged is more than just a connection between two beings. It is the beginning of a new life, our child." A cold chill spread through Marcus's veins as he tried to process what she had just said. "But I didn't know. I mean, how could I know that would happen?" Yara's eyes softened, a flicker of understanding crossing her features. "I did not know either. But it is rare for a human to form such a bond with us. It has never happened in recorded history. And now that it has, I do not know what to expect." A flash of panic surged through Marcus. He was no expert on alien reproduction, but the idea of fathering a child with someone, or something he barely knew, was overwhelming. "I don't even know what this means for me. For us. I didn't sign up for this." Yara turned to face him, her expression filled with empathy. "Neither of us did. But the bond is formed. The child is coming, and I am certain it will be unlike any other." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, pacing restlessly. The reality of the situation was crashing down on him. He wasn't ready for a child, especially not an alien one. The thought of raising a half-human, half-Selshar child was unimaginable, and the unknowns were too vast to calculate. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with tension. 2 months, Yara replied. "The process is quick. The egg will be laid soon." Marcus's breath caught in his throat. 2 months? That didn't give him much time to figure things out. And what would happen after the egg was laid? What would their child be like? The implications of their bond, and the potential consequences of what it might mean for both of their species, were staggering. "But I don't even know how to take care of an alien baby," Marcus blurted out, his mind racing. "I don't know anything about your people or your ways of raising children. I can't." Yara placed a hand gently on his arm, and he was startled by how calming her touch was, despite the alien energy that radiated from it. "You will learn. The bond between us is not just physical, it is emotional, spiritual. You will understand what needs to be done when the time comes." Marcus's skepticism was hard to mask. I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I can be a father to a creature from another world. I understand, Yara said softly, her eyes glowing with a strange warmth. But you are more capable than you think. Humans are resilient. You have proven that time and again in your history. If anyone can handle this, it is you. There was a pause as Marcus tried to absorb her words. His mind spun, caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. There was fear, yes, but also something else. A strange pull toward her. A sense of duty that he couldn't quite explain. She wasn't just an alien to him anymore. She was the mother of his child. As the reality of the situation set in, Marcus found himself staring at the glowing egg, his thoughts consumed with questions about what the future would hold. What kind of parent would he be? What kind of world would their child grow up in? And, most importantly, what was Yara not telling him? I have to prepare, Yara said, breaking the silence. You should rest. We have little time, and there is much to learn. Marcus nodded, his head still spinning. As Yara moved to one of the glowing panels on the walls, he stood there, watching her. Despite his fear and uncertainty, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something far bigger than either of them had anticipated. The egg, suspended in the center of the room, hummed louder now, as if in response to the conversation. Marcus couldn't help but feel that something was coming, something that would change everything. The bond was undeniable, and their lives would never be the same again. 2 months. He had 2 months to prepare for the unimaginable. But first, he needed to understand the true nature of the bond he had with Yara, and what their child would mean for both their worlds. The future was a mystery, but one thing was certain. Marcus's life had taken a turn he could never undo. The days following their conversation passed in a blur for Marcus. Yara seemed to glide through each day with a grace that made the bizarre situation feel almost natural. But Marcus, for all his calm exterior, felt the weight of what was happening pressing down on him. He couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. That the bond they had formed was not just a fleeting connection but something far more profound. As he prepared for the arrival of their child, he found himself constantly torn between disbelief and fascination. There was a strange beauty to Yara's calmness in the face of what was happening, but it only amplified his own internal chaos. While his logical mind tried to make sense of it all, his emotions swung wildly between excitement and dread. The 2 months went by quickly, and Marcus found himself spending more time with Yara, learning about the Selshar people and their customs. The more he learned, the more he realized how little he understood about the world she came from. Unlike Earth, where humans were bound by familiar biological processes, the Selshar's connection to their offspring was spiritual and metaphysical, as much as it was physical. The bond formed during their brief union was the beginning of an energy exchange that would culminate in the laying of an egg, a child born not just from their bodies but from their essences. Yara explained it to him one evening as they stood beneath the vast, starlit sky of Seraphis IV. The planet was teeming with life, the distant constellations twinkling above them, casting an ethereal glow over the landscape. In my culture, we do not form families as humans do, Yara said quietly, her eyes tracing the stars. We share our energy with a partner, and when the connection is right, a new life is created, one that carries the essence of both. It is not a burden, but a gift. But you're not just sharing energy, Marcus said, his voice filled with the lingering confusion. You're sharing life. You're telling me that I'm somehow part of this child, and that I'll have a responsibility to this new life. Yara turned toward him, her violet eyes glowing softly in the night. Yes, Captain. You are now as much a part of this child as I am. And as for your responsibility, it is not just mine to bear. You will learn to raise it just as I will. We are both its parents. He shook his head, feeling overwhelmed. I still don't understand. It's too much to process. I don't know if I'm even capable of doing this. Yara reached out, her fingers grazing his arm with a gentle, calming touch. I understand your fear, Marcus, but you will not be alone in this. I will guide you, and in time you will understand the path you must take. The quiet comfort of her words did little to calm the storm within Marcus. He was no stranger to responsibility, But this was something entirely different. He wasn't ready to be a parent, let alone the parent of an alien child. The idea of being responsible for a creature from another world, one that would grow up in a strange environment, seemed impossible. How could he protect it? How could he nurture it? It was then that Marcus realized the true extent of what he was stepping into. This wasn't just about him and Yara anymore. This was about two worlds colliding in a way that had never happened before. The stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. What would the Selshar people think of this union? Would they accept their child as one of their own? Would Earth's government even acknowledge the existence of the child? Or would it be considered an abomination, something so foreign and dangerous that it had to be hidden away? The fear and doubt gnawed at him. But beneath it all, there was something else. A sense of duty, a pull toward Yara and the life growing inside her. It was as if the bond they had formed had begun to change him, weaving its threads into his very soul. He had never been one to shy away from a challenge, but this was more than a challenge. This was an unknown frontier, one that had no map, no guide. Every decision felt like it could make or break the future of not just the child, but of both their worlds. 2 weeks before the egg was due to be laid, Yara brought Marcus to the heart of her people's temple. A vast, living structure that seemed to pulse with energy. The walls were made of translucent material, and inside, the air hummed with a strange, resonant vibration. At the center of the room stood a massive crystalline formation, taller than any building Marcus had seen. It radiated a soft, soothing light. "This is where our children are born," Yara said, her voice filled with reverence. "Here, the energy of life is harnessed, and the essence of the parents is channeled into the creation of a new being. It is not a process of labor or pain, as you might think. It is a delicate harmony, a melding of energies." Marcus watched as Yara stepped closer to the crystal, her hands outstretched. The room seemed to react to her, the walls vibrating with a low, melodic hum. The light intensified, and Marcus felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over him, as though the very atmosphere was guiding him toward understanding. Yara turned to him, her expression serene. "This is where the child will be laid," she said softly. "It is here that our bond will complete, and our child will take shape. But it is also a place of great change. It is where I must release the energy we share, and where you must share in that release." Marcus felt a wave of awe. The gravity of the moment settled heavily on him. In just days, the child would be born, and his life, and the life of the creature he had helped create, would be forever intertwined. There was no turning back, no escaping the responsibility that now lay before him. As he gazed at the crystalline formation, he finally understood. This wasn't just about an alien and a human crossing paths. It was about two species coming together in a way that had never happened before, creating something new, something powerful, something that could reshape the future. He wasn't sure if he was ready, but he knew that there was no other choice. He had to face this. He had to face the child and whatever consequences that would bring. The burden of knowledge, Marcus realized, was not just knowing what was to come. It was accepting it and understanding that, for better or worse, he was part of something that would change the universe. The final days before the egg's laying passed with a quiet intensity. Marcus could feel the weight of the coming event hanging over him like a storm cloud, and despite his efforts to prepare, the unknowns still overwhelmed him. He spent more time with Yara, trying to learn everything he could about the Selshar's culture and how to help raise their child. But no matter how much information he absorbed, nothing could prepare him for the actual moment when the egg would be laid. On the eve of the birth, Marcus and Yara stood once more in the glowing heart of the temple, the air thick with anticipation. The crystalline formation at the center of the room pulsed with an otherworldly light, its hum resonating through Marcus's bones. There was an unmistakable energy in the air, a sense that something monumental was about to happen. Yara, standing beside him, looked both serene and deeply focused. The glow from the crystal illuminated her face, her violet eyes reflecting the light with an ethereal quality. She was different now, more radiant, more powerful. Marcus couldn't help but marvel at her beauty, at the strange connection they shared. "You're ready," she said softly, her voice steady despite the overwhelming gravity of the situation. Marcus looked at her, his heart racing. "I'm not sure anyone could be ready for this." She smiled, a hint of warmth in her gaze. "You are more ready than you think. Trust in what we have, Marcus. Trust in the bond." He nodded, though his mind was a storm of doubt and anxiety. The weight of the responsibility was unbearable, but as he stood there beside Yara, he knew he couldn't back out. This child, their child, was coming, and he would not abandon it. A soft, melodic hum began to fill the room, growing louder as the crystal at the center of the temple began to change. The once still structure vibrated, its surface rippling as if alive. The light within it shifted, becoming brighter and more intense, casting strange shadows across the walls. A soft warmth filled the room, and Marcus felt a sense of peace, almost as if the universe itself was guiding them toward this moment. Yara stepped forward, her body moving with a grace that seemed otherworldly. She placed her hands gently on the crystal, and Marcus felt a strange pull in his chest as the energy within the temple seemed to respond to her. The crystal flickered with even more intensity, and the light around them shifted, becoming a swirling dance of colors. "Come," Yara said, her voice now filled with quiet command. "It is time." Marcus stepped toward her, his heart pounding. As he reached her side, he felt an unspoken understanding pass between them, as if everything in the universe had conspired to bring them here. He placed his hand on the crystal beside hers, and instantly, a surge of energy passed through him, unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was warm, comforting, and powerful all at once, and he felt it course through his veins, binding him to the child they were about to create. For a moment, everything around them seemed to fade. The buzzing energy of the temple, the swirling colors of the light, even the distant stars outside. All that existed was the crystal, the bond between Marcus and Yara, and the life that was about to begin. The hum of the crystal grew louder, the light blinding as it reached its peak. Yara's body shuddered slightly, her breath coming in slow, steady exhalations, as if she were preparing herself for something monumental. Marcus held his breath, waiting for the moment to come. The world around him seemed to hold its breath too, as if the universe itself was watching. And then, with a soft, almost imperceptible sound, the egg began to emerge from the crystal. Marcus gasped as he watched the process unfold. The egg, glowing with the same otherworldly light as the crystal, floated gently from the core of the formation. It was smooth and translucent, its surface shimmering with a soft, pulsing glow. Marcus could see the faint outlines of something moving inside, a sign that life was already beginning to take shape. Yara's expression remained calm, her eyes focused entirely on the egg. "The child is coming," she murmured, her voice full of reverence. "Our bond has created life. This is the beginning of something new." Marcus watched, mesmerized, as the egg continued to form, the process somehow both beautiful and awe-inspiring. There was no pain, no struggle. It was as though the very act of creation had become a harmonious event, an energy exchange that brought forth life with quiet grace. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the egg floated gently into the air and settled into the space in front of Marcus and Yara. It was perfect in its simplicity, glowing softly with an inner light. Marcus felt his breath catch as he gazed at it, knowing that this was his child. A child born from his essence and the essence of an alien woman from another world. Yara stepped back, her hands still glowing with the residual energy from the crystal. "It is done," she said softly, her voice a mixture of awe and finality. "The child has been created. Now we must wait." Marcus stood there, his mind racing. He couldn't tear his gaze away from the egg. It was hard to believe that something so small, so delicate, could contain the beginning of life, his child's life. "How long until?" he began, but Yara interrupted him. "The egg will grow at its own pace," she explained. "The bond will ensure its nourishment. It will not take long before it hatches." Marcus nodded, though his mind was still reeling from the weight of what had just transpired. The child was here, alive, forming, waiting to emerge. But as the reality of it sank in, a new wave of anxiety swept over him. He had not only been part of the creation of this life but also its protector, his father. He had no idea what kind of world he was about to bring it into, or what kind of future lay ahead for them all. The Selshar and humans were worlds apart, and now, with a child bridging that gap, everything was about to change. For better or worse, Marcus realized there was no going back. The bond was real, the child was real, and his life would never be the same. Days passed, and the temple became their sanctuary, the egg resting quietly in its crystalline cradle. The world outside seemed distant, and for a brief moment, Marcus allowed himself to forget the chaos of the universe. But the quiet anticipation of the eggs hatching never left him. It pulsed with a steady rhythm, a reminder that their child's birth was imminent. Marcus spent long hours with Yara, learning everything he could about the Selshar people, their customs, their ways of life. Despite his growing bond with her, there was still so much about her species that eluded him. The Selshar were creatures of energy, born from the melding of essence and spirit. Their culture revolved around unity, harmony, and the exchange of energies, all concepts that felt foreign to Marcus. Yet, in the time he had spent with Yara, he had come to understand the importance of balance, not only between individuals but also between species. In a way, their relationship, this strange union between a human and a Selshar, embodied that very balance. They were two beings from entirely different worlds, connected by an unbreakable force. And now, that force had manifested in the form of their child, a being that would carry the essence of both their worlds. As the days drew closer to the eggs hatching, Marcus found himself confronting the reality of his role as a father. It was a role he had never anticipated, one that filled him with both dread and a strange sense of purpose. How could he raise this child? How could he protect it? He had no answers, only questions, and his uncertainty gnawed at him. One evening, as the egg's glow intensified, Yara led Marcus to the center of the temple, where a new set of rituals awaited them. The air was thick with energy, and the crystal formations around the room hummed with a deep, resonant vibration. "It is time," Yara said quietly, her voice filled with quiet authority. Marcus nodded, though his heart was racing. He had been expecting this moment, but now that it was here, he felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The egg was vibrating, its surface rippling as though something was moving inside. The air felt charged with anticipation, and Marcus could feel his pulse quicken in response. Yara extended her hand toward him, her expression calm but resolute. "We must prepare ourselves, Marcus. This is not just a physical process. The child will be born of both our energies, and we must be in harmony." He took her hand, his fingers trembling as he grasped it. The warmth from her touch seeped into his skin, and for a moment, everything else seemed to fade away. The tension in his chest loosened, and he took a deep breath, focusing on the connection between them. Yara's eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw something different in them, something beyond the calm exterior she had maintained throughout their time together. There was a depth in her gaze, a quiet strength that reassured him. "You are not alone in this, Marcus," she said softly. "The child is a part of you, as much as it is a part of me." Marcus swallowed hard. He wasn't sure if he believed her. This child, his child, was unlike anything he had ever imagined. How could he be prepared for this? How could he be the father this being needed when he wasn't even sure what kind of life it would have? As if sensing his doubt, Yara squeezed his hand gently. "You will learn. You will understand when the time comes. Trust in the bond we share." The egg's glow brightened, and Marcus felt a sudden rush of energy course through him. It was as if the egg itself was calling to him, summoning him to be a part of its creation. The temperature in the room rose, and a soft, melodic hum filled the air. It was both soothing and invigorating, drawing him closer to the egg. Yara stepped forward, her body moving fluidly as she placed her hands gently on the egg's surface. The room seemed to respond to her, the energy in the air intensifying as she connected with it. She turned to Marcus, her voice barely a whisper. "Join me." Hesitant but resolute, Marcus stepped forward. He placed his hands on the egg, his fingers grazing the smooth surface. The instant his skin touched it, a jolt of energy shot through him, and he gasped. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Intense, powerful, and utterly foreign. His mind felt as though it were expanding, stretching beyond the confines of his body, as if the egg itself was pulling him into a deeper connection. The light from the egg flared, enveloping them both in a brilliant, blinding glow. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest as he felt the energy between him and Yara intensify, their bond pulsing with a force that seemed to connect them to the very fabric of the universe. It was overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying, and at that moment, Marcus realized the full weight of what was happening. He was becoming part of something greater than himself. The egg's surface began to crack, the glowing light shifting into a dazzling array of colors. With each passing second, the crack grew larger, the egg splitting open in a slow, deliberate motion. The room hummed with anticipation as Marcus's breath quickened, his pulse racing. And then, with a final burst of light, the egg shattered. A soft cry filled the air, followed by the sound of delicate wings fluttering. Marcus's eyes widened in shock as he gazed upon the creature emerging from the egg. It was small, its body covered in soft, translucent scales that shimmered in the light. Its wings, delicate and iridescent, unfurled slowly, revealing their full span. The creature's eyes, large and bright, locked onto Marcus's. They were a mix of violet and silver, mirroring Yara's gaze, and yet there was something unmistakably human about them. A bond, an unspoken connection, passed between them. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. This was his child, an alien being, yet undeniably his. The tiny creature let out another soft cry, and Marcus instinctively reached out a hand. Yara stepped beside him, her eyes filled with pride and tenderness. "It is perfect, Marcus. Our child." Marcus's heart swelled with emotion as he looked down at the small, fragile being before him. The fear and uncertainty that had plagued him in the days leading up to this moment began to fade, replaced by something new, something that was both terrifying and beautiful. This child, born of him and Yara, was their future, and it was up to him to protect it, nurture it, and help guide it into a world that was still foreign to him. But in that moment, as he gazed into the eyes of his child, Marcus realized that he wasn't as alone as he had once thought. The bond he shared with Yara, with the child, was real, and whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them, not as a man standing alone, but as a father standing beside his family. The days following the hatching were a whirlwind of emotions, actions, and adjustments. The small creature, whom they had yet to name, grew quickly, much faster than Marcus could have ever expected. It had taken its first steps within hours of hatching, its tiny, delicate legs supporting its fragile body as it explored the space around it. The shimmering wings on its back fluttered softly, seemingly drawn to the light that emanated from the temple's crystal walls. Marcus had spent every moment he could with Yara and the child, learning how to care for this new life. The creature, which Yara affectionately referred to as Elara, had a peculiar way of communicating. Its cries were soft but filled with urgency, like a song calling out for attention. And when it made eye contact with Marcus, he felt a rush of emotion, an undeniable connection, as though their souls had already become intertwined. Despite the growing bond, Marcus couldn't help but feel out of place. How could he, a human, possibly raise this being so different from anything he had known? Its mind and needs were unlike any human child's, and though Yara explained that the creature's development would follow its own rhythm, Marcus was anxious about his ability to provide what Elara needed. "Marcus," Yara's voice interrupted his thoughts as he watched Elara explore the room. She stepped closer, her eyes full of warmth and understanding. "You're doing well. Takes time, but you are already learning." Marcus glanced at her, his brow furrowing. "I don't know if I'm doing enough. I feel like there's so much I still don't understand. I'm supposed to be its father, but I'm lost." Yara's gaze softened, and she placed a hand on his arm, her touch gentle but firm. "You're afraid. I see it in your eyes. But fear is not a weakness, Marcus. simply the first step toward strength. You're not alone. I am here, and Alara is here. Together, we will navigate the path ahead. She was right. Fear had been clouding his thoughts, making him doubt himself. But the more time he spent with Yara, the more he saw how strong she was, how calm and wise she seemed in the face of this entirely new experience. Perhaps Marcus realized he could learn from her, and maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to see the shape of what this new life could be. Yara continued to guide him in the care of Alara, teaching him how to communicate through energy. The Selshar communicated not with words, but through the exchange of feelings and essence, a deep, resonant bond that allowed them to understand each other on an instinctual level. Marcus had struggled to grasp this at first, his human instincts wanting to rely on words and logical thought. But slowly, he began to feel the subtle shifts in the air, the soft hums of emotion that passed between them all. Alara's energy was vibrant, curious, and full of wonder, and Marcus found himself increasingly attuned to it. One evening, as the soft light of Seraphis IV filtered through the temple's translucent walls, Marcus sat beside Alara and Yara. The child was playing with the small, crystalline shapes that littered the floor, its wings fluttering excitedly as it picked them up, studying them with an intensity that surprised Marcus. Yara sat across from him, her expression thoughtful. You see, Marcus, Alara's development will not be measured in years as yours was. Our children grow quickly, but their minds, their essence, are always evolving. She will begin to understand the universe around her in ways that will challenge both of us. Marcus raised an eyebrow. How can I keep up with that? I'm still trying to figure out what it means to be a parent in the first place. Yara smiled, a hint of amusement in her eyes. Patience, Marcus. You will learn. Parenthood is not about being perfect. It's about being present, being there, in each moment, to guide them, to understand them. Marcus's mind whirred with the weight of her words. He had always prided himself on being in control, on understanding the parameters of a situation. But nothing about this felt like something he could control. This was unknown territory, and it was terrifying. The idea that he needed to rely on patience rather than answers was something his rational mind balked at. But as he watched Alara interact with the crystals, her tiny hands moving with incredible precision, a flicker of understanding began to form. He didn't need all the answers. He didn't need to know exactly how to raise an alien child. What he needed was to be there, to witness her growth, to share in her development, and to trust in the bond they shared. The realization wasn't easy. It wasn't instant. But over the following weeks, it became clearer that he was beginning to find his place in this strange new world. His role was not just that of a father, but of a partner, someone who could help guide Alara's unique development while learning alongside her. Yet, despite his growing understanding, a gnawing feeling of unease still lingered. He had grown attached to Yara and Alara, but he couldn't forget the world he had come from, the world that would never accept this child, or the union between him and Yara. How would they react when they discovered the truth? What would Earth's leaders say? Would they view Alara as a threat, a strange anomaly that needed to be controlled or eliminated? Yara must have sensed his inner turmoil, for she looked at him with a quiet intensity, as though reading the depths of his thoughts. You are concerned about the future, she said gently. I understand, but we cannot control the reactions of others. We can only control how we face what is coming. And we will face it together. Marcus looked at her, his heart heavy. I don't know if I'm ready to face the rest of the universe. I barely understand my place in it. Yara's expression softened, and she reached out, placing her hand on his. You have already faced the unknown, Marcus. You are already deeper in this than you realize. Together, we will teach the universe what it means to be human, and what it means to be Selshar. Our child will bridge the gap between our worlds. The path will not be easy, but the future is ours to shape. Marcus felt a wave of emotion wash over him as he looked at Yara and Alara. For the first time since the egg had hatched, he felt a glimmer of hope. There was so much unknown, so much they had yet to understand. But they had each other, and together, they could navigate whatever came next. He wasn't sure what the future held, or how the rest of the universe would react. But one thing was clear: this was his family now, and he would protect them no matter what. The quiet of the temple was punctuated only by the soft sound of Alara's laughter as she floated around the room, her tiny wings fluttering with each movement. Marcus watched her, a sense of pride swelling within him. In such a short time, she had grown stronger, her mind sharper, and her presence in their lives even more profound. Each day, she showed new signs of intelligence, curiosity, and a connection to the universe that Marcus still struggled to fully comprehend. The weight of his responsibility had not lightened. If anything, it had grown heavier. The universe was vast, and he had no idea what consequences would follow the discovery of their child. His relationship with Yara, though deeply fulfilling, still held the tension of an inevitable reckoning. The humans had no knowledge of what had transpired on Seraphis IV, nor would they accept the existence of a hybrid child that bridged the gap between human and alien. But as he watched Alara interact with the environment, learning to communicate with the subtle hum of energy that permeated the temple, Marcus began to realize something crucial. It didn't matter what the universe thought. What mattered was the family they had become. It was not about what they were, but about who they were together. Marcus, Yara's voice broke into his thoughts. She had been standing quietly by the glowing crystal, her eyes focused on Alara. "It is time." He blinked in confusion, his gaze shifting to her. "Time for what?" Yara stepped closer, her expression a mix of calm and solemnity. "The next step in Alara's development is drawing near. She will need to connect with the greater energies of the universe. And for that, we must leave this place." Marcus felt a sudden rush of uncertainty. "Leave? But why? We've only just begun to understand this place." Yara nodded, understanding his hesitation. "I know this is difficult, but Alara's growth cannot be contained here. She must experience the wider world, the larger universe. The energy that flows through her must be aligned with the forces beyond this temple. Only then can she fully awaken to her potential." Marcus swallowed hard, a wave of dread filling him. "I'm not ready for that. I don't even know what's out there. How can we face the rest of the universe when we don't understand it ourselves?" Yara's gaze softened, and she placed a reassuring hand on his. "No one is ever ready, Marcus. The universe does not wait for us to be prepared. But we will not face it alone. We have each other, and we have Alara." The words resonated deep within him. Marcus had spent so much of his life preparing for battles he never wanted, facing wars that felt endless. But this was different. This wasn't about fighting. It was about protecting and nurturing something that transcended the boundaries of human understanding. This was about embracing the unknown with love and commitment. Looking down at Alara, who was now watching him with her glowing, inquisitive eyes, Marcus knew that there was no turning back. His life, his purpose, had already shifted in ways he could not have foreseen. But this child, this amazing being born of two worlds, had the potential to change everything. And if there was one thing Marcus knew for certain, it was that he would do anything to ensure she thrived. "We leave in the morning," Yara said, her voice gentle yet firm. "I've prepared a way for us to travel beyond this world. The next chapter begins now." The following morning, the three of them stood before the temple's grand entrance. The swirling energies of Seraphis IV danced around them, a calm breeze carrying the scent of distant flowers and the promise of something new. Alara, cradled in Marcus's arms, seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, her wings fluttering softly as her curious eyes took in the world beyond the temple's confines. Yara stood beside him, her presence a constant, unwavering force that gave him the strength he lacked. Together, they made their way to a small transport vessel that Yara had prepared. It was sleek and compact, designed for the Selshar way of travel, powered by energy rather than fuel. As they boarded, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something that would define their lives forever. The vessel lifted off the ground, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Marcus looked out at the stars. The vastness of space stretched before them, an infinite sea of possibilities. But now, instead of feeling overwhelmed, Marcus felt a quiet peace. His fear had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled him. With Yara beside him and Alara in his arms, he knew he had found something worth fighting for. A purpose beyond survival. As the vessel cut through the atmosphere, heading toward the unknown reaches of the galaxy, Marcus felt a sense of wonder creeping into his chest. His mind began to shift, from the fear of what was to come, to the realization of what they could accomplish together. They were not merely escaping into the stars, they were forging a new path, a future that none of them could yet fully comprehend. Hours passed, and the stars seemed to grow closer, as though they were reaching out to meet them. The gentle hum of the ship's engines was calming, and Marcus found himself watching Alara as she continued to learn from the world around her. Her energy was unmistakably her own now, strong and vibrant, and it was clear that whatever was inside her would be something extraordinary. Yara sat next to him, her eyes fixed on the display screen ahead. "You see, Marcus," she said softly, "the universe is full of unknowns, but it is also full of potential. Alara will be the bridge between our worlds, the one who shows humanity what it means to embrace difference and create unity." Marcus nodded, his heart swelling with pride. He wasn't sure how this journey would end, or what challenges awaited them. But for the first time in his life, he felt a sense of certainty about the future. It wasn't about conquering the unknown. It was about embracing it with courage, love, and a willingness to adapt. They continued their journey in silence, each of them contemplating the vastness of the universe that awaited them. But in that moment, Marcus knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, he would face it not as a man alone, but as a father, a partner, and a protector of something far greater than himself. The end. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.